Thank you, Mr. De La Fuente, for joining this conversation today. And I really appreciate the time you're taking out amidst all the work that's going on, meetings and classroom teaching and others. So maybe if you could do a introduction about yourself, the school, your teaching practice, and the subjects that you're teaching for now, and then we can get into the questions.
Sure. So my name is Ed De La Fuente. I'm a fifth grade teacher at Washington School. We're an entirely fifth grade school. We have 16 sections, and I teach reading, writing, math, and science, as well as leadership and literacy. And in our science curriculum, we talk about in our Earth and space curriculum, we talk about the interdependence of all of Earth's systems, the geosphere, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the biosphere. And that because they're interdependent, if one of those systems gets damaged, it in turn damages all of the other systems. So we've been working on, like in my class, we've been working on a 3-day project basically on how to locate appropriate groundwater, perhaps in a new area of where people are settling. We're going to be moving into exploring Earth's natural energy resources and material resources as well.
They are such great ideas that really speaks about the systems thinking approach where we are looking at integrated systems coming together, and it's not just one science subject, but it's related to climate adaptation, so many different elements. Especially going forward, there will be, we are unfortunately crossing the 1.5 degree threshold, and there will be a lot of migration. We are discussing, the world leaders are discussing this at COP27. So any messages on what should students be learning, and how are you working on these larger messages from COP27 and trying to walk through your science classes? And I know you run the environmental class also. So how are you trying to make sure that there is global, at least understanding of where we are going and what will we need, and then the local adaptation of what students would need locally to drive local action?
So we look at, one of the things I go over with them, especially during our exploration of energy resources, is the rare opportunity we had a couple of years ago during our COVID lockdown to see the difference in the environment worldwide, that people didn't know that they could see mountains from their houses, things like that, because there were so fewer vehicles being operated. So I it's probably the only memory I want of that time period. But it's a valuable message for them to understand that we absolutely do have an impact on everything that we touch. And while we're learning globally, the best way for us to have a positive impact is to have an impact locally. So in our classroom, my goal with our environmental club this year is for students who are members of the club to bring back to each of their classrooms responsible recycling within the classroom, making sure that we're recycling all of the materials we can, but also making sure that we're not contaminating those materials by accidentally interdispersing garbage into that and then creating an entire container that would have been valuable recycling and now creating more landfill that we don't need, obviously. Ultimately, the goal of our environmental club is not only to get all of the classrooms on board with recycling, but then to have recycling going on in the cafeteria and have the students monitoring what's going into recycling into those containers, just to make sure that we're doing it responsibly.
I think this is such a great example to connect to the global discussions that I've seen around waste and bulging landfills. And I also speak to a lot of plastic scientists, microplastic scientists, and they're telling me that even fish has microplastic in it. Even water bottles, which are contained in plastic, have microplastics in them. So this is such a great way of infusing the idea that we need to reduce our waste, but we also need to be careful in doing this, not just in our homes, but also in the schools. And if this is done in schools, probably there will be a spillover in the homes as well. So I don't know if you see a lot of discussions that students are trying to bring this home and trying to segregate and asking their parents to segregate as well at homes.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty pleased to hear that comments from families, especially like this time of year during conferences. I do hear feedback from parents about how the students are taking it seriously. Even though we haven't really kicked off our environmental club, obviously in my classroom, I make sure that we separate our garbage and our recycling. And so they're definitely taking that message home. So they're already expanding from our local community of our classroom community into their own homes. And hopefully that message, like you said, will continue to spread.
Thank you, Mr. Delfonde. My last question for you is on what is your hope? What will students learn as a key message of environmental education and as a part of your science class? What do you want to take away? What do you want them to take away as a part of your whole, experience doing project-based learning, doing all these activities in the class? If you could maybe summarize it and see if there is any key message that you would like to give to other teachers and other students who are in this journey of, working with the environment and trying to understand it.
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning, Washington School is a 1-year school. We just have 5th grade and then they move on to middle school. But despite the fact that we only have 1 year with students, I don't want them to think of it as a one and done activity. What we're trying to do is create positive habits with them rather than simply something they learn and then they move on from it. It's hoping to create positive habits with them that they'll not only take those habits with them, but then they'll expand their thinking as they get into middle school and get into high school and really do some critical thinking about what positive changes that they can make in their local community, which will then spread out, kind of ripple out into the rest of the world.
It is fantastic to hear on how schools can make an impact in the community as well through science projects and through this work. And I hope that the climate standards, New Jersey is the first state so excited that I am living in the state and in Millburn, which is focusing on climate standards and integrating how science and social science can have that climate lens. So any suggestions on how that is taking place, and are you able to use that scope and sequence to make much more of an impact through your
Again, we're definitely hoping that they continue to take that message. And the other thing I always reinforce to my students is that they're not only students, but they're also teachers. So every opportunity that they have to see something that can be corrected in a supportive manner, that they should do it. And sometimes their best efforts, rather than using words, is simply by using actions. It's simply by seeing the wrong thing being done and simply correcting it on their own, rather than telling someone they're doing it wrong. When people start seeing more and more of the positive things, the right way to do things, I think they're more likely to act that way as well.
This was really inspiring, and it's just shows the importance of your teaching and the influence that a teacher in a school has on student habits, which can go a long way in improving our environment and improving this earth. So thank you so much for being so committed and coming up with all these innovative ideas. We will definitely be in touch, and I hope to learn a lot from you in this academic year. Thank you, Mr. Delfonte.
Wonderful. Thank you.